The secret code created by the Zodiac killer was mailed to California newspapers and police. Now this homicide investigator in Central California claims he has broken the code. Detective Harvey Hines of Escalon says his analysis of these cryptic symbols reveals the Zodiac's name is Cain.
So if we take the Zodiac for his word here, his name is Cain, K-A-N-E. His name is Cain, C-A-N-E. Born in 1924 under the sign of Taurus with a Jewish background.
Indeed, there is a man who used the name Cain, who has a criminal record, who was born in 1924. He's an ex-mental patient who fits the profile of the Zodiac killer. The man called Cain now lives in rural Northern California, but he hasn't been arrested. There have been about 1,500 active suspects in the Zodiac murders. Some police officers, including the man called Dirty Harry, became so obsessed with Zodiac, it nearly destroyed them. Super cop Dave Toschi, a San Francisco homicide detective and the model for the Dirty Harry movies, vowed to catch the Zodiac, but he never did. Toschi's career soured. He's now a security guard at this San Francisco hospital. Families of the Zodiac victims became close to police, and many officers just burned out because of frustration.
The Bay Area is breathing a lot easier tonight. Authorities say a menacing letter received yesterday by a Vallejo newspaper was not sent by the infamous Zodiac killer. Betsy Gebhardt has details.
The letter sent to the Vallejo Times-Herald looked hauntingly familiar. "I will be out driving around on Halloween in my death machine," the writer said, "looking for kitties to run over."
Immediately, I recognized the style, and I don't pretend to be a handwriting expert, but I know what the Zodiac letters look like, and this one said, uh-oh, this may be him again.
The Vallejo police detective who handled the case years ago is convinced the Zodiac was responsible for those 3 murders. Now retired, Jack Mullinax did not want to speak on camera, but even before Justice Department investigators announced the latest letter was a hoax, Mullinax had come to the same conclusion. He said the style looked like it was traced from a book. Several samples of Zodiac's letters are in the book Zodiac, published last year. The Zodiac killer was never caught. But Detective Mullinax said he had one strong suspect, a highly intelligent man he won't identify, who was most recently a retail clerk in Santa Rosa.
They dubbed him the Zodiac, a murderer who taunted police with bizarre notes and secret codes after his sickening crimes. His murder wave had an entire state living in fear, but families in one particular community felt more afraid than anybody else because their neighbor is a suspect in a string of unsolved killings.
Pretty scary, you know, to know that, especially that he's still out there, you know. It's something that never leaves your mind. You know, you look at her picture and she's not here, and that she was killed, you know, by a man that's still walking the streets.
And that mysterious man has kept this woman, Pam Huckabee, living a life of fear and frustration. Her sister, Darlene Farron, fatally became star-crossed with the fiendish Zodiac when he stalked her and shotgunned her to death while she was parked with her boyfriend at this Lover's Lane in Vallejo, California on our country's birthday, 1969. Today, Pam says her sister's senseless slaughter is something she'll never forget.
I've gotten cryptograms, letters, bullets, coffins, you name it. Someone has tried to keep the story alive through me to see how much I know.
It was after Darlene Farron's murder, authorities realized they had a twisted serial killer on their hands. Within days, Zodiac took credit for the killing in a letter addressed to the San Francisco Chronicle. The letter was signed only with a crossed circle.
He said in one of his letters to the Chronicle, from that point on, he was not going to specify which killings were his, but some would be, he'd make some look like accidents, some look like suicides, some look like robberies, and that he would just play this game.
And as local law enforcement agencies began feuding among themselves, the Zodiac was obviously winning the game. Zodiac taunted the police and the press, sending them countless letters. Cryptograms and satanic codes were his signature scorecards.
We ran this story, and the Zodiac killer sent a Halloween card addressed to me personally. And for about a year, I carried a gun around, which was an unnerving experience also.
It was the Zodiac's cat-and-mouse game with the public and the police that sparked such a high level of intrigue. Experts to this day have not mastered his codes and have really no idea how many lives the Zodiac has claimed. But one thing they do know is who the chief suspects in the case are.
Well, they weren't able to get me for the simple reason that I've never killed anyone in my life and don't intend to.
Arthur Lee Allen, a longtime Vallejo resident and former professional student, is the man many still believe to be the dreaded Zodiac. And for nearly half his adult life, Allen has lived with the Zodiac's loathsome label attached to his name.
There are a lot of people around who with all this bad publicity, are probably sure that I'm a Zodiac. People who know me, no problem. Thank God for our Constitution, because that says a person is innocent until proven guilty.
And the question of his innocence has been constantly challenged. In Robert Graysmith's best-selling book Zodiac, the suspect's brother and sister-in-law say that Allen often spoke of man as the most dangerous game. His own family at one time found him terrifying.
I enjoy a good tussle, but hey, even odds. There were coincidences that tended to point towards me, and killing just for the pleasure of it.
Jurisdictions were involved in the manhunt. We focused on Zodiac's second attack, the murder of Darlene Ferrin and the wounding of her companion, Mike Majot, shot in a golf course parking lot in the San Francisco suburb of Vallejo at midnight on July 4th, 1969. Now investigative reporter Maury Terry.
Someone Darlene knew and feared had been following her around Vallejo for months, and that last night she had an argument in the parking lot outside the restaurant where she worked with an unidentified man. From there, she hurried home and then rushed over to Mike Majot's house, from where the two were followed or maybe even chased out to that parking lot where the shooting went down. It certainly was not a random hit, and it seems pretty clear that Mike Majot may know much more than he has told the police.
Majot has been in hiding for more than 20 years. We obtained this exclusive undercover video after months of tracking him. In an emotional and dramatic meeting, Darlene Ferrin's sister, Pam Huckabee, approached a man she hadn't seen in more than 2 decades.
Hi, Mike. Hi. Do you remember me?
No, I don't.
Come here. I'm Darlene's sister, Pam.
Oh, hi, Pam.
I'd like to talk to you. No, Mike, there was a man that Darlene was very afraid of. That hung around Darlene. That I got to meet. That I got to see around her. And I believe you know who he is. Do you?
Yeah, I know a lot of that. It's been so long ago. I don't remember a lot of his names, to be honest.
It took me all this time to find you. And I want you to help me. And I know you can. You can't tell me you can't. You can't tell me you can't, Mike. I know you know who did it. I know you do.
It was Majot who told the police that the gunman called Darlene by her nickname before firing. After her death, there were rumors that she knew about drug dealing in Vallejo, that she belonged to a cult group, had seen a murder, and was killed for that reason.
Not only Darlene's, but it's quite likely that some of these other Zodiac killings, to my way of thinking, may have involved other motives, and they were done in such a manner as to make it appear a random killing. And really, what better way to divert attention?
Indeed, the police were diverted, at least publicly. After the Ferrin-Majot shooting, Zodiac called the Vallejo PD claiming credit for that attack and won 6 months earlier on a high school couple. For years, authorities have asserted that there is no recording of that call. Yet at one time, there was. Former Vallejo patrolman Steve Baldino.
I heard the tape. This dispatcher let me hear it. I believe it was the next night. Apparently that tape is no longer there. But it did, in fact, exist because I did hear it.
So where is that tape and why did it mysteriously disappear? Baldino acknowledges some corruption in his department in that era.
At the Ferrin-Majot shooting, the Zodiac approached with a flashlight, just like a cop would. And at the other Vallejo shooting, although it hadn't been made public before, a witness saw the perp's car just minutes before the shots rang out and described it as being dark-colored with no chrome, which is highly suggestive of an unmarked police vehicle.
That other Vallejo shooting was a double homicide. The victims, a high school couple, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. As in the Ferrin-Majot attack, we have uncovered a possible motive for this supposedly random assault. The late John Lynch, a retired Vallejo detective, talked about victim Faraday.
This kid had found out somewhere or another about some narcotics transaction that had taken place. And he was telling other kids about it, and they just eliminated him.
Arthur Allen has been the Vallejo Police Department's #1 suspect for more than 20 years, even though virtually no other agency involved believes he is the Zodiac.
I'm not the Zodiac. I've never killed anyone.
Police were looking for specific items: .22 caliber pistols, a black executioner-style hood, yellow taxicab keys. Without revealing everything they found, I learned they did confiscate explosives, bombs exactly like those the Zodiac serial killer described during his murder spree in the late 1960s and early to mid-1970s. I'm standing in front of the Vallejo home, which investigators searched last Valentine's Day, the home of the man police have suspected off and on for the last 20 years. That man, 52-year-old Arthur Allen, talked last week about the most recent search of his home.
They took a lot of my tapes. They took samples of my handwriting. They screwed up a lot of my stuff here too, but that wasn't, they didn't take that. They took a couple of typewriters.
But what was excised from the unsealed warrant at the request of police is the name of a new informant, reportedly a man currently in jail on other charges, a man believed to have information that could, investigators say, finally allow them to charge Arthur Allen as the Zodiac.
I know who the guy was. I'd never said a word to him. I didn't like the punk. And I said, well, this guy must be on the hot seat for something. Oh, no, he just phoned down and had volunteered this information. Well, I found out the next day from a different police officer that, yeah, he sure had. He was trying to plea bargain because he was facing 30-year rap on multiple armed robberies.
The Zodiac is believed to be responsible for at least 6 murders, although in letters to police and a San Francisco newspaper, he claimed 37. The last of those letters came in 1974, and that is when Arthur Allen went to prison on a child molestation charge. But despite an uncanny resemblance to police sketches made from witnesses' accounts of the real Zodiac, Arthur Allen continues to say they've been following the wrong guy.
I couldn't murder anyone.
And during an interview here last Friday night with Channel 7 News, Arthur Allen claimed that he is being persecuted by Vallejo police.
It's difficult as hell, and it can be it could be terribly depressing. And if I deserved any of it, that would be something different, but I don't.
But Allen has been a prime Zodiac suspect since at least 1971, suspected in the 6 murders connected to the astrology-oriented killer, a killer who claimed as many as 37 victims. Allen, who served 4 years in prison for child molestation, 4 years when the Zodiac was not heard from, is not averse to talking about the police's ceaseless pursuit.
There are 2 types of liars in the world, fishermen and policemen, and not necessarily in that order. And their function is lying to you is to trip you up. They can't do it to me because I have nothing to trip over.
Years ago, one handwriting analyst said Allen's penmanship does not match the Zodiac letters. But Allen, police say, is ambidextrous. Another police analyst said he could have, in the right mental state, successfully altered the samples he provided.
The Zodiac killer has haunted California's consciousness for more than 20 years. A mass murderer making his mark in the 60s by killing, then sending letters taunting police. Thousands of people have been interviewed, and the Zodiacs bounced in and out of the news. And through it all, there's been one constant.
I'm not the Zodiac killer. I know that. I know that deep in my soul.
Just point blank, are you a murderer?
No.
Are you the Zodiac killer?
No, definitely not. No. I couldn't murder anyone.
How do you live with this?
It's difficult as hell, and it can be
Today at a website called the Zodiac homepage, there was a photograph of Arthur Lee Allen, the suspect most investigators believe to be Zodiac.
Well, Allen was a scary guy. This is a guy with 2 master's degrees, very physically powerful, potentially an Olympic diver at one time. He wore a wristwatch that had a cross circle on it that said Zodiac. He wore a Zodiac ring.
What's more, the Zodiac letters stopped when Allen went to prison on a child molestation conviction. Some years ago, Allen talked about the Zodiac case while at the same time trying to protect his identity.
The only way I could clear myself would be for the real Zodiac to confess if he's still alive.
Allen kept claiming his innocence right up to his death in 1992.
I'm not the Zodiac. I've never killed anyone. These guys almost, well, they had me questioning myself.
Those investigators were apparently about to file murder charges when Allen died in Vallejo of a heart attack.
And he was found dead in front of his computer with a lump on his head in a bathrobe, the clippings of the case, and a disc in the machine that said Zodiac on it. So he said in the Chronicle, actually I believe one of the policemen said that if Arthur Lee Allen were alive today, they would arrest him as the Zodiac.
Robert Graysmith is the author of Zodiac, the definitive book on the case. He spent years shadowing Arthur Lee Allen and paid the price for it.
For years, I got hang-up calls every Saturday night. All I'd hear is sort of like the sound of wind rushing on the phone. That went on for a long, long time until I finally changed my number.
This is the Vallejo man many investigators consider to be the notorious Zodiac killer. And this is the first time his picture has been revealed. His name is Arthur Lee Allen.
Are you the Zodiac killer?
There would be nothing farther from my mind. No, I'm most certainly not the Zodiac killer.
But at San Francisco State University this afternoon, I was on a panel with people considered authorities on the Zodiac case. And for the first time publicly, they said,
as far as I can tell, Allen seems to be the best suspect they've come up with.
I feel that there are so many areas that point directly at Arthur Lee Allen that I feel that he is a viable suspect and in all probability the Zodiac.
But investigators never charged Allen with any of the killings connected with the Zodiac. And last August, Allen died. I interviewed him a year earlier. He was 58 then, diabetic and on kidney dialysis. But back in the late 60s, when the clever killer known as Zodiac terrorized California, Allen was in his late 30s, 60 pounds heavier, strong, a biology graduate student. Police considered him a suspect almost since the beginning.
About the only way the heat will stop is if I die, that'll cure it for me, or if Zodiac himself confesses.
There's so many lies I caught him in. His denying things didn't have any relevance anymore.
Allen's father, who died about the time the killings began, was in the Navy. Allen wasn't, yet he claimed he was.
What I did was paint. I did a whole lot of painting on a refrigerator ship, and then I ended up being a third-class radarman, which doesn't have a whole lot to do with cryptography.
Today, Vallejo police investigators said they never charged Allen because they couldn't explain discrepancies in the Zodiac's handwriting.
They haven't arrested me because they can't prove a thing. I'm not the damn Zodiac.
The Zodiac killer or victim of years of police harassment? Arthur Lee Allen took the answer to his grave.